So I thought we'd get back into the Patrol rear end, try and finish it off. So we've popped out the coil, undone the shock, undone the rear sway bar. I have changed the rear brake extension so that it's got extended brake line now, and it's braided as well down to the diff. I've extended up the rear brake proportioning valve, and I just went to change the rear breather and had this little problem. Oh, done that up nice and tight, and it's just broken off in there. So now I've got to try and get that out and then get another one back in, or put the originals over there, the rear brake line and the rear breather, which was hanging off. It obviously had dropped off the top part, so I'm going to try and fix that up somehow. Get that out, and then we're going to put in these, which I've modified up, coil retainer and the coil dropout cone. So you're going to put in the dropout cone and the coil retainer, and then whack everything back together, and that'll be the back end complete, with the breather hose running down the chassis towards the front end. We'll get that up into under the bonnet there eventually. I've got this weird screw thing, and just gently putting it in there, and then I've backed it out, and it's loose enough to just peel it back out. And that's that one. Now I've got another one here. We'll put that in and try not to break that one as well. And there it is. It's in. Bit of a pain that it goes straight up, but we're going to try and wind that over towards that brake line and run up with that. Or should we? Not sure if I've showed you this or not, but this is the dropout cone that I fixed up. So I've welded in some new nuts and got some new bolts, obviously. So 2 new nuts, and also welded in this brace. It's still got a little bit of a bend in it. So let's whack it in. And dropout cone is in, springs back in, and the retainer plate is on. So we just got to put the rest back together, and we've got to get this in as well. Get in our bump stops. So that rear end is all back together. Everything but one of the bump stop bolts is threaded. Might have to get an oversized bolt put in there and a new thread cut in it. Bit out of my league, so I might take that to the boys and see if they can do that for me. At the moment, the one bolt is holding that bump stop in place. The rear bar, so when I pulled it apart, this driver's side, which carries the wheel carrier, has a seized up or exploded bearings, and we've got the race is stuck on the pin. So I'm going to try and get that off, and then a set of bearings, and put all that back together, and then the spare tyre will be hanging off the back end. So that's the plan. So just going to try and get this race off as best as I can. Might be a matter of cutting it with the grinder to try and get it off. Alright, I don't know if I've introduced you guys to the list. So this is the list of jobs we've got to do. Mainly before we go to the Cape, but some of these can be left off. So on the Patrol, we've got rear suspension to do, which is technically done now. So cross that off. We have the front suspension, which is pretty much nearly done. Sliders, so I pulled the old sliders off the old Patrol and repaint them. So that's a job to do. Bull bar's got to come off the old girl, and I'd like to try and pop out a couple of little dents in it. Snorkel guard sealed, so that's the other guard off the old Blue Patrol has a snorkel cut out already. So I want to strip it down, clean it up, paint that guard, and then I'll swap guards with this one. So I'll paint it the same color as the old girl, as the new truck. Rear flares are not a priority there. A couple of the door flares are off on both sides. They're not really a priority. Doesn't matter if it doesn't come. Reverse lights, I've got one working. Reverse camera is working, but I'm not happy with that as well. Fridge setups, that is, yeah, got to do that. Got to work out what we're doing. We've got one fridge so far. We're probably going to need a second fridge. Dual battery setups is kind of half done. I'm going to use that little battery box with the lithium battery in the back of the car. So that's the 75 amp lithium. I've got wiring run for that, but we're also going to run a second start battery. That'll be under the bonnet. So it'll run power to the back end as well, which will also run to the trailer as well. So it'll support the trailer as well as the back end. So that's all part of the dual battery setup.
3 hours later.
Partway through that, still got a lot to do. Rear power setup. So I need to set up some power options in the back, the front center, and air locker. So I'm going to pull the other front center out of the other Patrol, swap centers with the Red Girl, and then I also need to set up the air compressor and all the wiring for the air locker setup. Not a major thing for the trip. If I don't get it done, I don't get it done. But I'd probably like to try and get that done because I want to do the front wheel bearings and check the kingpins while I'm in there, rebuild all that, make sure it's all good. So that will probably happen. Transfer case swap. So the other transfer case has the reduction gears in it. It's not priority for the trip, so that would be nice to do. Now we move over to the trailer. So the trailer is been getting most of the work lately. So I've welded up all those holes. I've extended the flares. I've whacked the 35s on. Still need a spare 35 for that. The water filler is drilled out. We just need to add that and do it all up, but that's after we paint it. Water pump, I haven't got to that yet. That's another one. And the awning brackets. So the awning brackets are made. She is sitting at the old boy's place getting painted up. She's got one coat on it, and then we had a really windy day, so we didn't put a second coat on it. And then it's been wet the last few days. So we got to finish the paint. That's all but done. And then it's a matter of putting all those awning brackets back together. A few other bits and pieces. The tent set up. So that'll be after the paint as well. So I need to seal off the lid of the trailer. I've got some ply to do that with, and I'm going to run a couple of bits of steel across the top, probably 3 bits of box steel, which will support the weight of the tent. The kitchen is a matter of bolting that to the rear gate, and a storage box in there as well. That has to be made. So I've still got a bit to do on that. Oh, and the 12 volt. So I'm going to run 12 volt power down to that trailer as well, because pretty much the trailer is just going to be running a water pump, some lights, and charging points. So it's not going to be a major power draw. I'll have both fridges in the back of the car. So that's the plan at the moment, or the list that we need to get on to and get done. Alright, so with the Patrol, we've got a bit more wiring to do. Going to run this wire, this endo plug. I'm going to mount that on the back end here somewhere for the rear bar or rear access, so we can get power to the trailer and everything else. And we're going to run this down the chassis to the second battery. So we'll bring it up and we'll pop it out up in here somewhere. I don't know if I've showed you this yet or not. I've mounted a Redarc isolator down in here, which is all good to go at the moment. She's only got the power wire from the main battery on it because I haven't got the second battery in. I've got this wire here that goes down to a circuit breaker in there as well, and that runs to the power in the back of the car. So it runs down into here. We flip the seat forward, and down in here I've got this length of cable with the red endo on it, ready for my battery pack that'll be in the back of here. Spare tyre will have to go. It's going back on the back. I'm hoping to mount the battery, and I'm hoping to have 2 fridges on this top of these drawers. Got the Titan drawers. So I need new bearings for the wheel carrier. The rear wheel carrier needs new bearings, so I'll get a set of bearings for that and then mount the tyre back up, and that'll get out of the way. But for now, let's get this wiring. So we've finished wiring up the dual battery setup. I had a little bit of trouble with the Redarc battery isolator. I've fitted him down in there. Can you see him? He's a bit hard to see. The little box on the side of it died on one of the units, and the pin on one of the units died. So I had 2 units and I put them together. So I'm running that down there, which just comes straight from the main battery over there across the back of the firewall. Feeds into the positive side of the isolator and then runs back up to the battery, which is just here. As you can see, it's still connected and at 12.8 volts at the moment. That's just a little gauge I got sitting there. And then you got two wires running off that. One feeds this fuse, which runs power to the rear of the vehicle, Anderson plug on the back of the vehicle. The other one goes through this little circuit breaker, 50 amp circuit breaker, and it feeds power into the back of the car. That's all in now and running and works good. There is an override switch down in there as well. If we get flat battery, we can use it to jump start. But that works pretty good. She's earthed out to the engine over there, but then it also comes and earths to this bolt here. So it's chassis earthed and engine earthed, and got the negatives running back up to here as well from those two sets of wires. So the positive and negatives run to the back end and into the back of the car. So that's the dual battery system ready to roll. Well, that section of it. Yeah, so that's another job ticked off the list.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gonna live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, doing no cap. Only God wants, so you better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad, yeah. Baby, I'm bad.
I just wanna stay bad, stay mad on my shoulder cause they treat me like an outcast. I ain't gonna take that, stay back. I'll be swinging hard till the hits come in all caps. I ain't gonna lay back, pray that someone's gonna help me, ain't nobody like that. I ain't gonna wait, that's all fact. Give me one shot and I'll never get the throne back.